Guys, what's up? How's it going? Today I want to talk to you about the most important, the most powerful tool that I've ever discovered for helping my clients to hear the difference between two sounds that they can't tell the difference between. And not only hear it, but be able to produce it, because that's ultimately what we want. So when you're learning a new pronunciation system, a new accent, when you're reducing your accent, there's going to be a few sounds in there which you're not clear which one is which and how to differentiate those sounds. And sometimes it might be that I'm producing the sounds and they can tell me which one I'm doing. For example, S, H, and S, I can go sh and s, and they'll know which one I'm doing. They can point it out. But when I ask them to do it, they can't do it. They can't do it. So why is that? What's happening? What's the problem here? So the problem really is about sensitivity to your tongue. So when you're learning a new pronunciation system, a new accent in a language, you're very insensitive to your tongue. Usually you've never even thought about what your tongue is doing, because when you're speaking your native language, ask any native speaker, when you're speaking your native language, you're not thinking about what your tongue is doing. It's completely automatic. You have no idea whether your tongue is even up or down. Honestly, I have students, sometimes I ask them, what's your tongue doing right now? And they say, it's doing nothing. It's not even moving. And I'm looking at their tongue flapping inside their mouth. So it's very common that you're very insensitive to what your tongue is doing. So this technique is very, very powerful for helping you to feel the difference between two sounds that are very similar to you. So we can take another example. I versus E. Now this one's big one for Spanish speakers or any European languages. I and E for this and these. Now this E is very, very difficult to hear the difference. And even when you can hear it, if you try and articulate that difference, you'll find it very tricky. You just don't know what your tongue is supposed to be doing. The difference is so subtle. So here's a technique that I want you to apply when you're learning the differences between two sounds that are similar. So let's go back to the example of SH and S. So this one really is applicable to the Vietnamese speakers. Typically, Vietnamese speakers have a lot of trouble with the hissing sounds. So let's start with this. Sh and S. So first, step one, you're going to take a couple of words that you're used to saying, it's familiar to you, and people don't misunderstand you when you use those words. So for example, we might say she and she. So the reason that we're taking words that are familiar to us is because often we can make the correct sounds. We can make the sounds in English language. But when we are asked to think about those particular sounds or take them out of context, that's when we get a bit confused. So start with words that you're always saying and people don't have any problem understanding you. So we'll go with she versus she. She, she. And then extend that first sound, because that's the sound we're interested in. See, she. See, she. See, she. And you're feeling it and you're hearing it. Okay, that's step one. Step two. Okay, now I want you to isolate those sounds outside of the words. And if you ever get confused during this process, just go back to step one so you remember what those sounds are again. So now we're going to do like this. S, sh, s, sh, s, sh, s, sh. Okay? You're hearing it and you're feeling it. And ideally, you want a teacher or you want a friend there who can hear those differences and tell you whether you're doing it right or whether you're doing it wrong. But now we come to the final step, and this is the big step. This is the one that really teaches you. So we're going to take away the gap, the pause between those two sounds. And we're just going to slide from one sound to the other sound. And when we do this, we're going to become very sensitive to what our tongue is doing as it transitions from one sound to the other sound. So for example, so you go backwards and forwards really slow, and you go slow enough so that you can feel what your tongue is doing to create the different sounds. And you're going to get sensitive to it. So can you feel it? And better still, can you describe it? Because if you can describe it, then you're really on a good path. It means you're really starting to become sensitive to it. And honestly, I don't care if you can describe it in a different way than I describe it, because to be honest with you, no one really knows exactly what is happening inside there unless you have an X-ray. It's very, very subtle. It's very, very gentle little change positions. But if you can just start describing it, then you're going to start remembering the feeling inside your mouth when you're doing this one or when you're doing this one. So you slide between one and the other one. And again, ideally, you have somebody who's really listening to you, or at least record your voice and send it to them. And this can apply to all other sounds as well, which are very similar. So for example, the I and the E will start with a word: this, these, this, these, this, these. And then we'll go step 2. I, E, E. And then we'll go step 3, the final step, the powerful step. So it's not about the length of the sound. A lot of people get confused with this one, and that at school they're taught the difference between I and E is the length. Like one of them is a long sound and the other one's a short sound. It's rubbish. It's rubbish. Forget about it. The difference is in the tongue shape. That's all it is. So you've got to pay attention to what's happening with your tongue and see if you get super sensitive to it. Use this technique, guys. It's very, very powerful. You can use it with any 2 sounds which are confusing for you. Go for it. Have some success.